Welcome to episode 10 of Superconnector Stories. We're so excited. I was like, what are we going to talk about? And Amira's like, we have a lot to talk
I
about.
was like, if you don't think we can get an hour between the two of us, I was like, you're miscalculating.
Yeah. So this is our final chance to just explore the two of us and what we've learned from doing this and what was our intention going into this podcast. So,
Unstructured and unscripted too. I mean, we're just here talking.
yeah. And then we'll kind of recap. So if this is the first episode then that you're listening to, you messed up because you always have to go back to episode 1. I think that my intention of creating this podcast, I want to share, and then I'd love to hear from you as well. So my intention of creating this podcast is that I met Amira and she blew me away. And then I would tell people about her and words didn't do her justice. And the only thing that I could share about you was like a measly article, or not even an article. But it's like
see things on.
it's profound. It's profound what happened to you, but there's just like a GoFundMe or a scary mommy article about you. And that's the only thing that's there on the internet. And I think you're such a beautiful person. And I want your story to be shared through your voice. And that's what I wanted. That was one of my intentions. And my second intention is that I would love, for your children to have some piece of you documented, forever, because I feel like they have such a special mom and they probably don't get to share her with the world, right?
I'm sure they would like me to be less on top of them for sure.
Maybe.
They want to share.
Yeah.
No,
and
I hear your point. Yeah.
And then finally, I guess another intention is like, I think matchmaking is interesting and people want me to talk about it and like why I do what I do and how I do what I do. But like, it's really just about people. It's about connection. Like you meet enough people, you're going to feel love for yourself and love for others because there's so much magical, sparkly fairy dust in all the humans, right? So I want people to see that and meet the people that I love and have you meet the people I love.
Well, I mean, I would say it's really interesting for me because those intentions, though I could feel them from the jump, you didn't actually tell me those intentions until like 4 weeks ago. I don't know if you know that, like your specifics of how and why you really wanted this podcast to manifest. And like from the, I guess, inside, because I'm certainly inside of your life, but like the inside looking in or, more inside, it felt like there were a lot of different potential motivations. Certainly, you are a social butterfly. You can't literally sit still. Everybody you meet, it's like, oh my God, look at who I met. Oh my God, this is why they're brilliant. Oh my God. And I think that for me, the platform seems so just obvious for you, right? Like it made total sense. Being somebody who's intimately involved in your life as your friend, it just made sense. And then feeling out like where I fit into it, like, what my real life is like, what my health constraints are actually like, not what I show or like put out there. Well, maybe even you get guarded by some of it, but you less so than most. And I just think I reflect now, having learned more of why you really wanted this to take place and how you created this, doing all the footwork, all the business work, planning it all, funding it all. Literally, it all came from you. It made total sense that those were your intentions for me. And it just, from my side, we met at a time when my life felt too big. It was way too big, but it was really small. My life was small. How I saw myself was small. And not because that's what I think of myself, but that's because my life literally started over. And the people in my life at the time couldn't see me. And I couldn't see me because it was something new and to be defined still and hadn't yet come into any kind of fruition yet. And I was uncomfortable in that position. And in our safe space for literally years of just talking in a phone or like late night on WhatsApp, right? Through the ups and downs of me vomiting for days at a time or after treatments and totally incapable of moving, the parts of us that really never left are the conversation and the talking and the connections that would just happen at the organic times, whether it was 2:00 in the morning because I was up throwing up or whenever, right? And I just think it is such a beautiful thing that you were able to find any platform for it to work in the complexities of my life where I've gotten to meet some of the most extraordinary people and have like some really interesting experiences and read books and have access to information and new perspectives that I'll tell you, even from the beginning of starting this podcast to now, have reshaped how I view myself.
So I think that, thank you. I think some people, when they watched episode 1 that we haven't officially published yet, but they want to know, like, oh my God, this woman, like, she should be a therapist. She should be a this. She could be doing this. She could be doing that. And I'm like, oh, I remember when I met Amira and I said all of those things to her too. But the truth is, like, all they see is you and your power and your voice in the chair, and they don't also understand capacity, And I'm like, I wish all these things for you be a public speaker, you would do all these things. But the reality is that
watching my capacity
they don't know
in real time and how hard I fight just to show up sometimes. And if you know me,
share like what is your cycle that you go through to be able to show up to something like you didn't?
I mean, part of it is you have to understand me as a person, and that took. I mean, anybody takes people time, but it took you time to understand and the boundaries and how long did I say no to you across the board. It was an algorithm, like it was just a no for everything. Come meet this person. No, I love you, Michal, but no. Come to this Shabbat. I really love you, but no. Like come hang out here. No, go out on this date. No, go out on this, go meet this person. No, like, are you looking for this? No. And it was just a no. And even
I got, wait. There were
a lot of yeses. No, a lot of yeses to you.
She gave me a million no's, but then one time I was like, I'm working with an amazing ER physician. Like, would you, do a coffee chat? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I started.
There were a few yeses, but I got like 99 no's from Amira.
And like even now, like we feel it out, but you know what a yes means for me. And so yes to me, whether I've committed to sweeping someone's front steps or going in and doing a podcast series or taking on a responsibility of any kind, running a code, whatever that level of commitment is that I've made. And for a long time, I didn't have an ability to look at the commitments I made and have any way to discern the value of those commitments. For me, it was an algorithm. It was an on and off switch. If I committed, it didn't matter if I was near death. I mean, truly. And I used to function that way. And I think when you work in an emergency setting or you work in healthcare and you grow up in the type of family I grew up in, you learn that it's not necessarily easier. It's complicated. If you say yes, you show up, you do your best job. And it took me a lot of time. And through our friendship, I have learned those boundaries and how to apply them even outside of our relationship and have some ability to understand that a yes can be modified, right? A yes is not necessarily a hands down yes, and it doesn't have to be done outside of what my health or safety boundaries are. But I wasn't given that, not at work and not in my home environment for a very long time. So those changes I made within me because it allowed me a sense of control. Let's be honest, right? Going back and modifying a yes means that you have to be received on the other end. And unless you're received on the other end, those modifications just get you nowhere. So yeah, I think it was learning and shifting my environments and shifting the people that, I consider my core, my people, to be able to get some of that back,
Can you share, you talk really fast, right? Wasn't it different from episode 1, people? Like, I was like, Amira, you're basically different, but
like, why?
No, I know.
Like that.
I know. I was so
I've never done a podcast. I grew up with parents that make documentary films. I grew up in front of a camera, behind a camera, with a camera all the time. You were just commenting how Jassim can take a beautiful photograph at 10.
Yeah.
Both my kids, Rakem at 7, takes a beautiful photograph. Really proud of that. Yeah. And so it was actually really funny for me to be so uncomfortable and stiff. Like I go back and listen and I'm like, oh,
I know. But you, I think
because I'm so animated too with you all the time. You're like, who is this person?
Yeah. The first time I met Amira, we just like laughed so hard and nobody else was in the room. I swear. Like no, and
the room was full and nobody was there.
The room disappeared. We just like laughed so hard. And I haven't seen you in so many contexts at birthday parties or things like that, but just hanging out the two of us. So then to have a camera go on you and then see you speak so slowly and intentionally, like I was like, what is this? But let's see, audience, you guys could tell us, like, do you notice a difference between episode 1 and now?
Part of it too is, like I said, coming from an ER world or we're a world where everything you say is held to a certain standard, right? You're speaking from a place of expertise. This was a strange environment
Yeah.
for me to come into because that's not what I'm doing here. I'm just speaking my own opinion. And that isn't the way I've ever spoken really before. I've
My
always
gosh.
been accessed as an expert, whether it's for health or for counseling or whatever it may be. And so when this first started, I really had to take a look and step outside of myself and say, all right, that's not who you are representing today. Like, don't be so mindful about these words because these aren't the words of an ER physician. These aren't words that follow up with accountability and lawsuits the way that I've been trained to think. Right. And so for me, well, and some of these topics are things that, I'm not sure we've thought about and talked about pretty much everything that does exist somewhere within humanity, I imagine.
We've talked about everything. It's just that I guess I want people to think about how when you go on a date with someone, it's like Amira episode 1, like it's so hard to be on a date. You're so nervous. First impressions, they're everything, but like not everybody has like spark, charisma, charm from point 0 seconds. And sometimes you could learn so much about someone as time goes on and in a different context. And this is how friendships develop.
But I won't even say like the spark, charisma, and what did you say the third one was? Spark, charisma, and you said
I don't know.
You said spark, charisma, and something. And, I know that was meant as a compliment, but the reality is most of that's a packaging, right? Like you probably, I mean, I'm not sure that's true or not. I'm sure you think I have plenty of spark and charisma now that you've truly gotten to know me. But if you were to compare that spark and charisma and what's received on the outer side to really who I am as a human being, right? You've learned that I'm sure there's a lot more complexity to that. And so I think that those are people's like safety cloaks too, right? Like some of my quote unquote charm, that was the word, spark, charisma, and charm came to me. Charm and charisma, those are also, they're cloaks. They're not a disguise, but there are things you fall back on when you don't want to be intimate and you don't want to
Or
actually
humor,
be
or people
seen.
use humor.
Or when you don't want to be seen. That's it, right? It's not like it's an intentional thing that your cerebrum is saying, like, let's confuse people and, manipulate this. But the reality is we all take things that make us uncomfortable and we receive that and we respond, right? And I think in certain circumstances, you can use humor or you use charisma or charm. But seeing somebody's true humanity, like their actual, whatever it may be, when they're not at their best or when their charisma meter is on its low, right? What's on the other piece? What's the other piece to that?
That's true. I don't know. I want everybody to have more friendship in life and connection in their life, but I also understand capacity. It takes work to see, and it takes work to be seen. And I remember one time that I was just doing like a walk with my daughter or just something like that. And I don't know, I just really wanted some like girlfriend time and I wanted to come to you. And I was just like such a hot mess and it was summer. It was just something gross like that. And I had just like
I remember that walk.
quit my job or whatever. And I just remember that I was like, Amira, I don't know. It's just, I'm a mess. And you wrote to me, come as you are.
Girl, just come as you are. Always.
Yeah, but just those words, I don't know that I've had anybody ever say that to me so like bluntly and profoundly, come as you are. And it meant so much to me in that moment to have someone give me that like permission.
But that's the part that like,
And I can't.
want people to, you did. And I remember where we went and I remember where we sat and I remember the photographs that I took of you and Elliot that day. I remember them very, very well. The truth of the matter is that I think the piece of letting yourself receive it, right, is that part, right? Because the reality is I've been here for the honest relationship from the jump. I mean, you told that story in episode 1 where you had this moment of wanting to sort of compare hardships and you didn't feel comfortable expressing those hardships to me because somehow there's this dynamic. It's the same thing for being a hot mess. Right?
Yeah.
Like you got to see what a hot mess means to me. Like I'm literally on the floor vomiting and at times urinating on myself. And like that's life. That's it. That's the truth. And having a honest and safe place to know that you can be that way. You trusted it. That's the difference, right? Because I'm sure you have been told a similar thing before. The difference is that the nature of our relationship, the boundaries of our relationship, and all the reliability that had been built into that relationship knew that I meant it.
Are we looking at each other though?
I know we're not even.
We're not even looking at the. My gosh.
We're just having an intimate conversation.
I guess
like every day.
I guess Amira, what can we just go back to like what would you say to people who are watching this who are just like, well, why aren't you a public speaker? Like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing this and this and this and this and this? Like, can you talk more about your capacity and what your priorities are and maybe what it? Yeah.
Well, for one, I think it's not well understood that my illness and my disease is not my wheelchair. I have been sick my whole life with an autoimmune disease, and the autoimmune world is it's a tricky one. I would need a whole podcast series to even start that topic. I think the important points to remember is that it's not a visible illness, and that being a woman of color, it has been a really tough journey to have an invisible illness and to have to both figure out how to communicate to the medical world, people within my administration when I was working, my friends, my family, even the parts that they can't see and how that relates to me. Even the medical world didn't really buy in or believe much of what was going on in me until I ended up paralyzed overnight. And you can ask my family, I knew the whole time that something was really, really off, but it was off in ways that felt subtle or I couldn't really navigate, and the medical world wasn't validating. And you develop an imposter syndrome of your own where you're not really sure what's real and what you feel, and if what you feel is manifested from a physical form or mental or emotional, and it can be really hard to tease apart. And so for me, it was just a long journey of having an autoimmune disease where I knew what was real, and I was fighting in a system that wasn't able to accommodate me for a lot of reasons.
And also your T cells are
so
literally
part of it is that I have an autoimmune disease that's extremely rare, very, very, very rare, like very, very, very rare. There's very few of me that exist. And the result of that is a supply and demand issue. If there are not a lot of people who are like me, the world, which is a commercial, corporate world of medicine, it's a business, pharmaceuticals, they are not there's no motivation to find solutions for people who are in scenarios like mine. The cost-effective nature of that is not supported. So finding a solution that is real or works for me, even studying it on the level of studies, they aren't funded, they aren't needed, because when you look at the numbers, there are a lot more patients that fit categories outside of mine that potentially need that, that need it too, right? Yeah. So with people like me, there's not a lot of choices, and the choices that are out there aren't well studied. The evidence-based medicine is limited. So what I go through is having an illness that is put into a category more than a finite definition. And then the application of how they treat me is with a very large amount of immunosuppression. It's a type of chemotherapeutic agent. It's an immune therapy. And it just wipes out my antibodies. So part of the reason that my capacity is what it is because I've been hospitalized. I don't want to give an exact number because I haven't counted recently, but somewhere around 13 or 14 times in 7 years. These are long hospitalizations, some mostly upwards of 6 weeks at a time, one of which was 58 days. I go into the hospital without much of an understanding of when I'll come out. That's true for my kids. And so planning, predicting, having a system where you work and you have obligations that are put on you, especially at the level that the obligations were put on me. It's a system that unless it can accommodate you, there isn't a place to be, because especially with the boundaries that I had at the time, I was always just kind of willing to take it for the team, take it for the team, take it for the team. Where that means now is the predictability of it. And that's partly why this podcast was so beautiful to me, because why I'm able to do this is because I cringe to say this, I'm not proud of it, but you did all the work, right? Like, that's the truth. Like, I've shown up and I'm here. I've read books. I've done things at my leisure in the middle of the night when I have the peace and the time and the health. But the reality is this has been entirely structured around what I can and can't do. And so, if there was a lot more that went into deadlines and strict, whatever it may be that's on someone else's terms, someone else's schedule, that becomes infinitely more difficult for me to do. Infinitely more difficult.
So we were supposed to do this a long time ago and you couldn't. And I canceled everything the day before because I couldn't do this without you. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it myself. And so
and at that time, my health, was even more unpredictable.
Yeah.
And trying to take on something like that.
It was a cold month too. It was like,
the winter's really tough for me, my body, and my immunosuppression. And don't forget, we're really only coming barely out of the times where even a common person would believe that COVID is not a concern for them. And I don't have a fighting immune system. I've been hospitalized twice with COVID. The first time was very severe. And I think that I have to approach public scenarios, public people, other people, intimate scenarios with a very different...
Kids who go to school,
my
kids who come home from things that they pick up at school.
Like they hang out with, who my kids are with, who anyone who's intimately involved in my life is communicating with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that in terms of what it's like to have like a friendship, it's different to be like on podcasts or on TV or whatever when you have business and stuff. But like to do it with a friend was interesting for me because it challenged me because I had to have an expectation of you. And
I'm curious how that felt for you. And like,
it was hard. I've never wanted to push you,
And you've done a wonderful job of not. That's also why part of my hesitation of starting all of this was were we reading each other in a way that like it wasn't going to cause hardships for our friendship.
Yeah. And I would say that we've entered like really scary territory because like I don't want to push you, but then like I need you there, but like I understand you might cancel, and I like told the team like that there might be a cancellation at the drop of a dime.
And had some of those hiccups along the way, and that's also why my yeses are sacred, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be that person. I will show up. I will figure out. I will move like mountains and hell and high water to make sure both that I represent myself, but most importantly, if I've taken something on, I've taken that on with somebody that I care about. Truthfully, that's what they exploit you from in the ER, right? Like back in those days.
You were just saying yes all the time, right?
The truth is, I wasn't saying yes for the system. I was saying yes because saying no meant my colleague was ripped out from home.
Yeah.
Right? That is what they exploit you for. That's how they get you. And they get you on those people that are always going to be givers. And that self-reflection on myself knew that I needed boundaries, and I had to have boundaries. Because when I lose those boundaries, I lose my health. And then if I lose my health, that means an enormous amount for my children. At home, it is just me and the boys. And so when I don't have the capacity that I need at the baseline level, which isn't something that most people will understand, I do things very differently than most. I can't maintain. And I didn't live in a world like that before. I was the never ending. I could be awake for however long I needed to be. Obviously, that has consequences. But, that was the mentality I was coming from. So I went from the pendulum being all yeses to swinging that pendulum entirely the other way to all no's. And that was the only safe place I could be for a really long time. And let's be honest, I not tested intentionally, but our friendship for years before committing to something that was bigger, right? Than that. Partly, like I said, I think with these boundaries, with you in particular, we've always navigated like truth really well. And I think that I was just relying on...
I do love the truth.
Well, I was relying on that. Like, being that you can take the truth. And I've always said that. I am going through some really like big crap right now in my life. And when it's overwhelming for me and I feel like my truth is too much, like this is where I go, because there are not a lot of people that can take the truth and like internalize it and hold it for you, especially when you care about that person, right? And that's often where...
Without trying to fix it.
Well, right, don't fix it, but just hold that space, right? You offer me lots of solutions too, but it's just having a place that you feel safe to bring your truth. And I think that truth stems over and spills over into all of the things that we do. And so I felt at least confident in knowing that if we were going to go down this path and I couldn't see the finish line, because that's the problem. If I don't see the finish line, I won't start. Not in this
here
body.
We are.
Like not in this body. I won't, right? I knew that we would think outside the box and figure it out.
Yeah.
Much like your upcoming mobile year.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
So tell me what's ahead for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about the next year coming up.
This podcast was done because we're kind of like closing a chapter of me being here in Philly and moving to being an explorer.
You're doing a transient life with your family for what? How long have you committed to?
Yeah, we're going to be doing a year of travel. And I always tell people that I'm working with that like yes is so much more fun than no. And I think that yes breeds connection. I mean, I get 99 no's, but then I get one yes, and then we have a podcast. And yeah, I've always had this like little sprinkle of a dream to do a long travel year with my family. There's something about when you travel. I know everybody says they love to travel. Not everybody, but you know what I mean. People who have like the means or they're able to travel around the US or whatever it is. We all say it, but I like to travel in a way that's really, I like to do it slow. And
I like to feel the communities and
Yeah.
meet the people.
I like to meet the people and I like to listen and I don't like to book things and I like to like kind
You're not
of,
there to sightsee. You never are. You're not that person.
Nah.
You're there to feel the truth and like the
I know.
people, the beat of the people.
I want to hear what dating is like all around the Midwest.
You want to
and
know what love looks
Yeah.
like there.
Yeah. There's something that you can learn from everybody, you know? So that's kind of what I'm doing. I mean, it's how I ended up in Colombia, like traveling around and listening to people too.
So, in the world of love and connection and family, like your whole family's going with and everybody's doing these transient years, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. We're going to like strangle each other in a beautiful way. So I don't know.
It'll
be a beautiful strangulation.
New environments to see.
Yeah. We have an RV.
Yeah.
We have an RV and
some
we're
swaps, some RVing, a whole bunch of things planned.
Yeah. It feels like really vulnerable, and this podcast will come out when I'm on it, and I'm going to meet cool people. So I'm excited. And then, like, fortunately, like I have the types of friendships that don't rely on like, let's grab drinks, like let's do this, let's do that. I have the types of friendships where, because it's so baked in truth and just coming as you are, that I just know that you'll be there.
Especially with me, but I think I've met, I think the majority of very important people in your life.
I've got lots more, but
no, it was certainly true. But I've met the core, I think, of like, that's actually true. There's certainly people I haven't met, names of which I know, stories of which I know. But what I mean, though, is even of those relationships, the ones I haven't met, the ones I know about, they are all these friendships that are going to live no matter what, right, in your cell phone and your WhatsApp conversations. And like to reflect on ours, like we didn't leave our phone for years. We are only pen pals.
Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of fun to go back to our roots,
I really wish this for everybody. Like, I think in doing this podcast and, going through this like growth and the shift with you and stuff, I wish for everyone that they can have a friendship where they could be so real. Yeah. Just
honest and true and just show all your parts.
Yeah.
All your sides.
And also to have someone who's like such a sharp observer is quite amazing. Which you are, Amira, like the way that you've like observed things about me through doing this podcast. And I'm like, I would say some of my highlights of doing this podcast are if you observe any episode and you see how Amira makes a snide comment or a joke about me. I'm like, yeah, that's actually true.
You can unpack them later, but there's so much truth in it. No, I mean, I don't mean to do it.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wish this for everybody. So that's my conclusion of the Superconnector Stories, that there's people like me who have like 1 million people and then they want their friends to meet 1 million people. And there's people like Amira who she doesn't need to have such a big, like just this like wide breadth of people. She needs to have some really great safe spaces with strong boundaries that have truth, And so whether you're like me or like her, I hope you have someone that you can be whoever you are with. That's my conclusion.
Yeah. And for me, I keep speaking from a really like personal, like selfish place, which I'll unpack that later. The reality is that, like, from where I was who I was when we started our friendship and who I was even when we started this podcast to now, even thinking about, I get like, I get so convoluted having to like explain my thoughts, but, I am someone who shows on the surface an enormous amount of confidence. I'm someone, if you meet me, and you get one interaction with me, you are going to think that I think either too much or know exactly what I think, and I can think it with confidence and I can speak it. And those words you used before are charismatic and charming. And the reality is that's an outer facade most of the time. I mean, it is a part of me, don't get me wrong. And it's a skilled part of me that I honed and created both through how I grew up, but as an ER physician. Those are certainly big, deep parts of me, but those are only facets of me, right? They're small parts of me. And for me, it's that safe space. Yeah. And the truth.
Yeah.
And so getting to see all those other parts, right, that are not so charming and very clumsy, that's the part that's really beautiful to me.
I love
And
that.
I think that no matter how you're packaged, right, you want to be able to share all your parts, all those parts, all those sides.
I agree. And just like I think because someone watched this and commented on like that she also had the experience of like seeing someone from across the room and how their like eyes struck her and that the same thing happened with us. Like to think that that's how
The energy.
miraculous the eyes and the energy can be. And I was like, you look like someone that I need to know.
I need to know.
That I need to know. So if you feel that in the future, explore that. I know that when we're in the bank or wherever we go, we're all looking at our phones and
Oh, we feel that energy a lot.
and we talk to our AI and all of that stuff. But like when we actually look up, like just try to notice if you can see that in someone's eyes.
I mean, I will just add personally, because I'm here sharing too much already. So that is what I've taken from you, is that energy has always been there. I felt that energy my whole life. I've felt either the look of or me looking at or that burning connection. And I've not thought that I've chosen not to trust it, but I just haven't invested in it. And through our relationship and a lot of these podcast conversations and the people you've put me in touch with, I mean, even from the texts you get me daily, what those, like when I do open up to that energy, what it results in. Meeting somebody new, a 4-hour conversation at the park, being asked out, whatever it may be. If I didn't let that energy in, none of those things would have happened. And I attribute all of them to you, which is seriously why the moment I roll away, I bring my phone out and I'm like, guess what, Michal? Guess what, Michal? And you're literally right back. I can feel your joy. I feel your energy like through the phone, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. Like, are there moments, are there sparks of that I can look back through my entire life? Yes, there are. But it was the receiving end of it. Like it was me cutting that off or detaching or looking away too soon or not inviting that energy to develop, right? To see what's on the other side. And just allowing myself to do that more in the last 3 months has changed my own perspective of myself. And you were saying if someone's like you, I would say equally, if you're out there thinking you figured yourself out, you figured you know who you are and you like it, that was me before. I thought I knew myself. I thought that I had everything in my life connection-wise that I wanted. I told you all the time I don't need new friends. Because to me, friendships.
That was your line.
Well,
that was her line.
Look,
for me.
I don't have any. There are no meaningless friendships, and friends aren't like. Well, I don't have any meaningless friends. My friends are my family, and if I'm going to make that kind of commitment to somebody, I wanted it to be something I had the capacity for.
And I just want the world to know. I want people to know that you really played hard to get with.
I did play hard to get. I did. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to be like, look, I just don't have the space. I don't have the space for this. I don't have the space for this.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of work on both of our ends, me opening up and figuring out, really, is it no space or is this an algorithm that I just apply to keep myself safe and to not develop those parts of myself because that's safer. Or, the receiving side of someone saying, look, I do see you. Like, I do hear you. I can respect those boundaries. And I think the magic in the mix.
All righty. Any other highlights that you want to?
Yeah, I feel like, any other,
she's afraid to share her favorites.
My favorites of this? No. I mean, I love the last conversation in particular with the sexologist. I just think more real talk, more speaking the truth, more talking about what everybody's already thinking in their heads. And, whether it's the right thing to say or not, I certainly don't always have the right words, but let's talk about it. Let's speak it. Let's say it. I talk about my 10-year-old and my 7-year-old. And I feel really grateful that I have a relationship with them where they feel like they can tell me what's on their minds and they don't feel a stigma or a concern. And I hope I do the same with my friendships. And, I want to be that space for people, whether it's also for myself, to be able to filter through the truth and figure it out.
I think with like a lot of divergent brains, like there's a lot going on in here and then they don't have like spaces to
figure out the bigger pictures a lot of the time. You get really stuck on details.
And it gets bounce it around in their head.
Convoluted. Finding your way back out of that algorithm is really tough.
Yeah. I'm working with
lots of webs and webs and webs.
That's right. I'm working with a client right now. I just thought it was so interesting he has a divergent brain who like asked me to ask ChatGPT something that I didn't know about myself. And then he asked ChatGPT something he didn't know about himself. And then he asked for our answers to compare, and just to say, how would the two of you relate to each other? It was, and it said, and
that's connection of the new age, right? Let's AI read what you say and what you say, and then tell me how we relate. I mean,
well,
I think it's a beautiful thing. I read it. I didn't understand that it came from a question that you both asked. Like that was the piece that I was missing. I was like, huh?
It said, so the ChatGPT said you would recognize each other not just in a casual, we get along way, but in that rare low frequency hum when two people spot the same invisible currents in life. You both ask questions that point beyond surfaces. So if ChatGPT also wants to, you don't really use it, do you?
Oh,
But I say the same thing about us.
I need to try. No, I knew that's why you sent it to me.
Yeah.
Like it was exactly the case.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Oh, no, but I knew the reason, but I didn't know how
the future too. The future is like that. Like it's not just like two people. Like, oh my god, like let's
AI.
Are we friends? You know what I mean? Like let's be friends. We're gonna have our
compatibility measures.
AIs talk to each other and figure out if we're right for each other.
Compatibility measures.
Well, here we are. All right.
So tell me, how does AI play in the matchmaking world? Are people using it? Like you saw this with your client, but like, what are people doing with AI to like match
everything, and they're using it to like
personalities, or like
I think the future will. I don't know, if I were to guess, I would say that on apps, people are just going to have like their bots talking to each other and then presenting the matches to each other.
So that's my guess. Like, what does that make you feel?
Puzzled, I think.
Because is that human connection? Like, I'm scared that we're ending on that here.
I mean, I like
our whole intention is to talk about safe spaces and create a build of human connection and talk about really what that brings you. And don't get me wrong, I feel like integrating AI and tech is a huge part of, what our world is and how we relate and communicate, especially as we talk about generations beneath us.
I know.
But that thought is terrifying. But I mean, let's be honest.
And it's reality.
What we have emoji faces that look like us, that half interact.
Yeah, we can be terrified or just accept. But I thought his little experiment was interesting.
No, I love the experiment that he did.
I don't know.
Concerned about bots dating in the future on.
But people are quite honest and truthful with their
bots,
GPTs and stuff like that.
You know what, they're probably better able to be because it's a step removed.
Yeah, thank you for being mine.
Like in a place of emotion at the moment and feeling grateful and like reflecting on my best friend sitting here next to me and just really thinking about how we have chosen to see each other and how we've chosen to connect. And I use that word really specifically. We both chose this. She chose me in a room filled with people, and I certainly said yes eventually to her because you can't say no. You can't say no, but how much I have grown and changed and learned about myself through our friendship, but more importantly, the places you've connected me to, has just been mind-blowing. And again, I'm one of those people who would have strongly said, I know enough about myself. I need no more friends, and I don't need to know anything else. And I would just say, if you're that person, if you think you're that person, I challenge you. I challenge you to listen to these episodes. I challenge you to say yes. I challenge you to give Michal a call and find out, where you can be connected, or any of the people that have been on our show. These people are spectacular.
Yeah.
And these are people that I have been connected to personally just through this podcast, who I've never met before. And I've rolled in and like
literally rolls in.
Just roll in. And I've been blown away. And even the conversations that have taken place post those interviews and the books that I have chosen to read, or rather audio, because I don't read. Podcasts are the way to go. The truth is that I just think there's just so much that you can gain by opening yourself up, by asking yourself the question, and by saying yes and trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's energy around you. That connection doesn't even need to be verbal. It can be a glance in an eye, or body language, or a connection through a song. I just think that if you aren't paying attention and you aren't willing to say yes and you aren't willing to receive the energy, you never will.
Yep. I love it, honey. You never will.
You never will. That's the truth. You'll stay very stagnant, and you might be happy with who you are in that moment. But the truth is, we're all meant to adapt and change over time.
Cheers to that. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on our mini-series, Superconnector Stories. Superconnector.
Thank you. Thank you.